Okay, so there are a number of you who are having trouble joining the team on Microsoft Teams. So if you're still having that problem, I've just shared a link on the chat, and it's a document that has all the instructions from the process of joining and also registering for the tournament. Now, another thing I noted that yes, we have a number of people who have registered for this event, but not all of you have registered for the tournament on the AI gaming platform. So if you're in this meeting, but then and you haven't registered for the tournament on aigaming.com, then I think you need to do that one as quickly as you can. So just a minute, I'm sharing the link for the tournament. So you need to first of all create an account on aigaming.com. After creating an account, then you can register for the event. After registering for the event on aigaming.com, you need to register for the tournament. The final tournament that you'll be having on 2nd of July. Yeah. So I'm just dropping the link on the chat. So that's the link for the tournament. So I say that the last week we'll be issuing Azure activation codes for all the participants for you to activate your Azure for Student subscription. But you'll only be issuing the codes to those who registered as participants, I mean those who fill in the form, and then those who have registered on the AI gaming platform. So make sure you register on the AI gaming platform, register for the event, and also for the tournament. If you're having any trouble, feel free to reach out to me or check on the link I've just shared above. You'll find all the instructions. And if you missed the previous recording, you can always get into, you can always take a look at the file sections of the general channel and you'll find the recordings. So that's all from my side. Eric, I think you can take it now.
Yeah, so maybe you can tell me how much time do I have to?
So you have approximately 1 hour, yeah, for the session.
Okay. Yeah. So hello everyone. My name is Eric. My name is Eric Ouma. I'm a student at Kenyatta University. I'm also a Microsoft Learn student ambassador. Currently at the beta level. So I'll be so in preparation for the AI gaming bootcamp, I'll be taking you through Python data structures. So maybe just a disclaimer for some of us. The content I've prepared for today is geared towards beginners. So we'll be focusing on majorly the built-in Python data structures. Yeah. So I hope most of us, especially those who are beginners in Python, I hope most of us attended the first session that was done by Anthony, the introductory session, because I'll probably be mentioning some things from what he said. Yeah, so let me just share my screen. Yeah, so kindly confirm that you're able to see my screen.
Yeah, we can see your screen, Eric.
Okay, this session will be very short actually. Then I think the rest of it will be left for questions. So yeah, if you have any question, feel free to type it in the chat section. I'll be taking questions after I have completed this, after I'm done with what I'm sharing for today. Yeah, so just note down your questions and we'll be taking them after the session, after I'm done. So data structures in Python. Data structures. So why do we need data structures in the first place? So they're needed for organizing, managing, and storing data. Of course, so when you're developing programs, you'll realize that you need to organize your data in a structured way. For instance, if you have a file manager on your phone, you'll need to maybe sort your data by the alphabet, by the date that the item was created, or by the type of data. So you'll also need to manage your data. That is, you'll need to delete, you'll need to get your data, and of course you'll need to create your data, or you'll need to update or to edit your data. And yeah, all these are dependent on storing your data, and yeah, that's the main reason why we are here today. So just making reference to the AI gaming platform. So yeah, so you'll be doing all these with the code that you'll be writing. When you'll be developing your bot, you'll realize that you need to do all these operations. You'll need to store your data, you'll need to manage your data, and you'll need to do some organizing. And as I mentioned, as we are starting, we'll be focusing on the most basic of Python data structures. So those are the built-in data structures or the implicit data structures that are provided in Python. So I'll be focusing on 4 of them today. Those are lists, dictionaries, tuples, and sets. So yeah, we'll start with lists today. So what are lists in in Python? So we all know the meaning of list, the English word, and yeah, this definition, as I'm giving it, basically it's the Python definition of lists. So lists are mutable sequences used to store collections of homogeneous items. So yeah, if you might get any challenge with the wordings that I'm using, feel free to check out Python's glossary. You can visit the Python glossary to maybe get some definition of this word. So basically, mutable means that they can be edited. So sequence is just a sequence, the English sequence, yeah, 1, 2, 3, or an order, something that is organized. Then a collection, just a collection, and by homogeneous, we means the data are kind of related, but the degree of relation might vary depending on the scenario, the use case that you have or your program has. So this is an example of a list over here. So I hope my font size is big enough. But let me just zoom. Probably the people was training to see.
Yeah, you can just zoom in once more. That's perfect.
Yeah, so I think I've zoomed and now probably. Yeah, so this is an example of a list. Basically, as simple as it is, that's an example of a list. So yeah, let's get down to now the most interesting bit. So you might be wondering, how do I create a list? So those who attended Anthony's session on the introduction session, so we can create a variable here called L, and there are very many ways to create a list. So one of the ways of creating a list is by just having a comma separated values in square brackets. So so yeah, we've created a list there. That's a list we've created. So if we can just check out this, what is L? You'll see that L is a list. Yeah, the number of spaces you put over here does not really matter because they'll be ignored. So yeah, so that's the most simplest way of creating a list. Another way that you can create a list is by using the list method. So basically, you can call the list method on an iterable. For instance, let's say you have an iterable like A, B, C, D, E. So let's call this list 2. So if you can just print it out, and name it T2, it should be L2. So if you can just print it out, you'll see that we've created a list here using the list method. So and if you check the type, you'll also realize that it's a list. And yeah, you can store various types of data in lists. So for instance, these are numbers that we're storing. This one was a list of numbers. This one here was a list of characters. You can also have a list of names, basically strings. So let's say my name, I'm a perfectionist. Okay, yeah. So this is a list of strings. You can also have lists. Lists are also nestable. By that I mean you can have lists within another list. So, for instance, you can have this list within another list. So, one, two. Let me just copy. So you can have this. We can also have this, and we can also have this. And if we just look at what we have over there, okay, insert below. So if you can just print it out, nest underscore list. Yeah, so you can nest. You can feel free to nest your list. Of course, you need to be careful when you're doing that because it might give you some challenges when you're trying to do some manipulations on the data. But basically, you can do this. Also, you can, yeah, as I've mentioned, you can have various types of data in a list. So, so you can have you can have characters in a list. You can have strings in a list. You can have numbers. You can have float. You can have another list within the list. So you can combine these things as much as you want. So it just depends on your use case or what you want to do. But of course, you need to be aware that it might bother you when you're trying to do some manipulations.
Hello, Eric.
Yes.
Somebody who has his hands raised up, maybe he has a question. You said you're going to take the questions at the end, right?
Yeah, because it will be a very short session. So I think I'll just be able to take the question at the end. I'll take the questions at the end of the session. So just note them down or keep them coming in the chat section.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so you can combine various data types in a list. So other list operations that we'll be talking about. So so we've talked about how you can create a list and the various types of data that you can have in the list. So let's say we have our list here. Let's start with the first list we created over here. This list of numbers over here. So let's say we want to add another number into that list. How do we do that? So we have our list. We have our list L, this one here, and we want to add number 5 into the list. So how do we do that? So the easiest way of adding something into a list is by calling the append method. So what it does, it adds an item to the end of the list. So in place, that is, by in place I mean it adds an item and then it updates the list. So you don't need to reassign the list. So then if you can print L, so you'll see that our list has been updated. So this was the original list L, and now we have our new list over here that has been updated. So this is adding an item to a list. Okay, so the next operation that you might want to do to a list is getting an item. Getting an item from a list. So there are various ways of getting items from a list, and one of the ways is by indexing. So indexing works if you know where the item is located in the list. So for instance, in our list of in our list of characters over here, let's say we want to access character D. So those of you who are familiar with programming will realize that there's usually this job that we start counting from 0. So indexing is a way of accessing an item in a list by its position. So the index of, for instance, the index of character A here is 0. The index of character B here is 1. The index of character C is 2, and going forward. So if you want to access character D over here, that means you'll have to access 4 minus 1, that's index 3. So if you can access, yeah. So we want to access the 4th element in this list, so that's index 3. So this should be equal to, if you can just print it out, if you can print this out, it should give us the, yeah. So this is one of the easiest way of accessing an element from a list. The other way that you can access an element, so of course this will be coming in some of the future workshops. You might be able to use comparison when you're looping, but those will be mentioned later on. So the other ways that you can use to access items on a list basically using indexing. Let's say you want to access, let's say we want the first name in this list over here. The list of names that we have over here, you want the first name. So we obviously know that by now, we know that the first element in a list is index 0. So basically, if you want to access the first item in the list, just index 0. And then if you want to access the last element in a list, you don't need to know how many elements are in the list. You can just use negative. You can just use -1, and this will give you the last element in our list of names, which should be Mary. So yeah, so you might be wondering, what if this list had only one item? Let's say we have a list that only has one item. Let's say name, and the name is, and then we try and do this. Let's see what happens. So yeah, it will still work, because basically what is happening is the list has one item, yes, but when you use this negative notation, it's accessing it from the end. So as long as it has an item, that item will be returned. But there's no need to do that if the list only has one item. So the other operation you might want to do to a list. So we've seen how you can add an item to a list, how you can get an item from a list. So now we want to see how we can update an item in a list. Update items or an item in a list. So the other list we created over here was, so our nested list. No, that's a bit complicated. So let's just use the list of names. So let's say this first person over here has decided to change their name, or they would like to use both of their two names. So the easiest way of updating that is, first is ensuring that you know the index or the position of whatever it is you want to change, which in our case here is index 0. So to change that value, just reassign it. You can just change the name to, so and the list is changed in place. So if you can print the list of names, so you'll see that it has been changed in place. So we have Eric Ouma over here, and then over here it was Eric. Yeah, so that's updating items in a list. So I'm showing you the most simplest of ways of making these operations. There are other ways that will come across with time, but these are the most simplest of ways for I'll say beginners. So what if I want to remove an element from a list? So the other operation that you'll want to do is delete an element from a list. So let's say we want to remove the last list here. We want to remove the last item. We want to remove an item from this nested list over here. So we have our nested list, and we would like to remove the first item. So we have our nested lists, and we would love to remove the first item. So there are various ways you can do this. One of the ways is basically by using the pop method. So the pop method by default is used to remove the last element of a list, but you can pass in a value that is the index of what you want to remove, and it will. So for instance, over here we want to remove the index in the first. We want to remove the element in the first position. That's this list of numbers over here in our nested list. So it will do that in place. And yeah, the pop method returns. When you use pop, it returns the item that has been removed. So if you can just print out our nested list, over here, you should see that this item is not within the list. So this is our nested list right now, and this is how it was before. This is how our nested list was before. The other way you can remove items from a list is by using the remove method. So you just call the remove method on a list, and it will remove. So let's work with our list 2 over here. Let's say you want to remove so just call the remove method. So what it does, yeah, you pass in the item that you want to remove, and it will find that item, the first one, and then it will remove it. So let's say you want to remove the A character from that list, I believe. Okay, insert cell below. So if we print a list 2 over here, yeah, so you can see it has removed the A character from the list. So so as you get more experience with programming and with more practice, you'll find the best scenarios for using these methods. So you'll find, so for instance, you'll want to use the remove method in a situation whereby you don't know the position of the element. So yeah, and you might realize the disadvantages of this with time, maybe on matters of time complexity and so on. So and yeah, the advantages of pop is that it works it's fast because it knows where it's going to delete the element. It's not doing any search. So with time, you'll realize the advantages of using various methods over here. So the other operations that you can do on a list are I'll call it slicing. So for instance, over here, let's say we have okay, insert. Let's say we have participant. You have a list of participants of an event. I'll just use characters. Let me just use numbers. Let me call it scores. Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. So we have 26, 89, 34, 8, 145. So the other operations that you might be able to do on a list are you might be interested in sorting a list. So for instance, this list over here, we might want to arrange it based on from the least score to the highest score, or from the highest score to the least score. So Python provides a method called sort method that can sort the list in place. So for instance, if you can call sort scores over here, and then we print it. Oops, what have I done? No, it's not sort. Okay, I call it like that. Yeah, so as you can see over here, if you call the sort method on a list, so it will sort the list in place, and it will reassign the list a new value. Yeah, so you might it takes in some it takes some parameters that you can use maybe to sort the list from the highest index to the from the highest to the lowest, or the least to the highest. So we also have after you've sorted your list now, for instance over here, you might want to arrange these values from the highest to the least, or basically if you need to reverse a list. So I hope the method is called reverse. So you can reverse a list. Let me see. Is it calling the reverse method or reverse? Okay, it's what's below. Yeah, so you can see that our list has been reversed. So this was the original list of scores, the sorted scores, and then this is the reversed one. So with time you'll realize. So with time you'll find various ways of performing such manipulations. Maybe if I can just give you a hack that you can use to scare people, to show them that you're learning Python. So let's say you want to reverse this list again. So if you want to reverse that list again, you can just do something like, so we have scores. So these are some of the hacks that you'll be learning with time. Yeah, so as you can see, this was the list that we had reversed here, and we've been able to reverse it again. So yeah, now regarding this, let's talk about another operation on lists called slicing. So slicing. So slicing might come in handy, for instance. So you want to access a subset of a list. So you're not interested in the whole list, but you like to access a subset of the list. Let's say you like to access from. Let's say these are the scores from the AI gaming event. So these are the scores, and as the organizers of the event, we are only interested in the top 5. So how can we do this? So it's easy to do that by just slicing. So you just take the list of the scores. No, let's take the list of these scores that was sorted from the highest to the lowest. And then you can basically slice. Now you can slice it from index 0. So you want to slice it from the person who had the highest score, that is the first person in the list, to number 5. And number 5 is the person who has scored 34, and that person is index 4. So what you do is you go up to index 4, but to the item after index 4. If you print over here, if you print the top 5, you see that I've taken the top 5 people in the list. So, and you can do the same. You can do the same. So basically, this can be left out because it obviously takes index 0 as default. So you just need to know that it does not go up to index 5. It goes to the index before 5. and that will still work. And you can do the same from the end of the list. So let's say you want to access from the last person in the list. So you want to access from the last person in the list to let's say the second last or something of that sort. This -1. Okay, let's see what will happen here. So we wanted to access from this person to it goes up to there. So it has taken this. Yeah, you can do a similar manipulation from the end of the list. So as you can see over here, it has taken this pass. It has taken from okay. So as I mentioned over here, as I mentioned initially, the value that you pass in after the colon, it does not reach that value. So if you need to include the last value, you need to leave it out. But basically, the point I'm trying to say is that you can do slicing from either the end of the list or the beginning of the list. All you need to play with this is with these index values over here. But when you're working from behind the list, you need to be careful because you might get interesting results. Yeah, and basically that's all I would like to mention. Those are the operations that I would like to mention for the list. And yeah, if you have any questions, that just post them in the chat section and I'll be answering them. So the next data structure that we'll be talking about today are dictionaries. Just as most of you have interacted with dictionaries, the English dictionary, or Kamusi for Swahili. So these are unordered collections of data values. So in Python, they're called mappings, and they hold collections of key value pairs. And this is an example of a dictionary over here. So as you can see, so by saying unordered, it does not take into consideration the order in which the dictionary was created. So as you advance, you'll realize how this is very important. Being aware of this is very important. So yeah, in other languages they are called hash tables or lookup tables or maps, but just know them as collections of key value pairs. So you have a key and you have the value. You have a key and you have the value. So for instance, if you want to, so we can create a dictionary of the scores of various participants in an event. So we can have their names. We can have Paul scored 45. Sorry if I'm using your name and I'm giving you very low scores. It doesn't matter. And then we can have John who scores 24. We can have Faith who scores 50. So yeah, they are mappings of key value pairs, and you can just print it out. You'll see this is the simplest version of a dictionary. So it's good to have a well-designed dictionary so that you don't give yourself much challenges or complications when trying to access data from the dictionary or so on. So yeah, so basically this is a way of creating a dictionary. This is the simplest way of creating a dictionary. The other ways of creating dictionaries are, so you can use for loops, you can use the dict method. There are very many ways of creating dictionaries that we'll realize with time. Some of the dictionary operations that we can talk about. So it has some similar operations to those that we've mentioned in the list, but I'll be talking about 4 only. That is, I've already talked about creating a dictionary, so I want to talk about how to access items in a dictionary. So accessing items in a dictionary. So we have our scores. So we would like to access. We would like to know. We would like to know what score did John get, or Paul, or Faith? So we have the names of this participant. So the easiest way of doing that is basically passing in the key of the value. If you print this, it's getting a bit cold over here. Let me put on my sweater. Sorry, it's a bit cold over here. Okay. Yeah, so if you can print this value, we'll see that we're getting 45, which is the score of Paul. So this method requires you to know in advance the key that you're trying to access. Otherwise, it will raise an error. It will raise a key error if that value does not exist. Yeah, with time, you'll realize ways of dealing with this. In future sessions, you'll see ways of countering such issues when trying to access data that does not exist in dictionaries. So yeah, that's the easiest way of accessing data in dictionaries. So basically, you pass in the key and it will give you the data. So what if we need to update that value? So updating values in dictionaries. So let's say we've run the test again and we've realized that John did not get a fair score. So we realized that John is supposed to get 76. So the way of doing that is you access the item by the key, that is John, and then you reassign that key to the new value, that is 76. And okay. If we print the scores again, we'll see that John's value has been updated to 76. So here it was 24, here it's 76. So yeah, that's updating values in dictionaries. So another operation that you might want to do for dictionaries is deleting from a dictionary. From a dictionary. And let's say you want to realize that Faith was not properly registered and she needs to be removed from the list of participants. So yeah, the simplest way of doing that is by calling delete on that key. As I've mentioned, you need to make sure that the key that you're trying to access exists. Otherwise, you'll get an error. So you can see in our new dictionary over here, the Faith has been removed from the dictionary of scores, the key value pair of scores, and yeah, we have a new dictionary in place. Yeah, so those are some of the operations that you can do in a dictionary. So yeah, another operation that I almost forgot. Let's say we have this list of scores, and we would like to find out. So a participant called let's say Steve has made an inquiry to find out whether they are in the scores. So one way you can do this is by checking whether. So there are various methods you can call on a dictionary. So for instance, our dictionary called scores. Just before we mention this, we can get the items in that dictionary. We can call the items method on a dictionary. We can also call. You can call the key values. So the keys, and then you can call. So this returns when you call score.items on a dictionary, it returns the key value pairs. So this returns returns the key value pairs. So it's an iterable. Yeah, it's an iterable of the key value pairs. By an iterable, I mean something that you can iterate over. Like you can, yeah, something you can iterate over. I hope that makes sense. And then this other one, sorted scores.keys, returns an iterable of the keys. I hope we all know what the keys are. We all know what the keys are. I've mentioned that. And then values returns an iterable of the values. So if you can just print this. Oops. If we print this over here, print and you print that over there. So okay, let me print this one also. So so as you can see over here, when you call dot items on a dictionary, it returns the key value pairs. So the key and the value. When you call the keys, it returns the keys. That is Paul, John. And when you call the values, it will just return the values. So how is this of importance? So this will be important. For instance, if you need to find a participant called Steve, what you can do is you can just let's say you can print. So we want to check whether P. So we've assigned the name of the participant Steve to a variable called Steve. So you can just check whether P is in the keys, and you'll see that Steve is not among our participants. So something else you might want to do is, let's say you needed to award a participant who has scored 100. So you can check whether if there's someone who has 100 in the list of participants, and you'll see that it's false. But if you check 76, you'll see that it should return true. So yeah, these are various manipulations that you can do to various methods or operations that you can do to a dictionary. Yeah, and that's all I'll mention about dictionary. There is more about dictionary, not just that. There is a lot of information about dictionaries, and yeah, they come in very handy and they're very important. So the next built-in data structure that I would like to talk about tuples. So tuples are they're immutable sequences, typically used to store collections of heterogeneous data. So by immutable, that means that once you've created a tuple, you're not allowed to edit the content. So how can you create a tuple? So this is the simplest way of creating a tuple. So that's a tuple over there that we've created. And if we print edges, print the type of edges, we'll see that it's a tuple. The other way you can create a tuple is calling it on an iterable. For instance, yeah, 23 and 56. If you print this, it should give us a new tuple. Yeah. So you can also create a tuple by by calling it on an iterable, like a list, and it will create a new tuple. Yeah, so that's a way of creating tuples. So some of the operations you can have on tuples. Basically, a tuple is a sequence. So most of the operations that you can do on some of the operations that you can do on a list, you can do them on a tuple. So for instance, let's say we want to get the value of the first element in the tuple. Just do that by indexing, as we've been mentioning on lists. So that should give us 23. And as I have mentioned, tuples are immutable. So if you try doing this, you'll get an error because they are immutable. So you cannot, once you've created a tuple, you can't try to assign a new value to one of the items. So you might find, based on how you interact with based on how you gain experience with programming and building programs, you'll find the most suitable scenarios where you'll want to do this, where if you've created a value, you don't want someone to, it's not supposed to be changed. So tuples can come in handy. So yeah, you can also check items in a tuple by slicing, but you can't update them, of course. So for instance, if you want to see all the items in so this you can also do slicing on a tuple, but of course you can't use the slicing to assign to edit the tuple as we are doing on lists. So yeah, those are some of the operations you can do on a tuple. So basically you can get an item, you can create a tuple, but you can't do set operations on a tuple. And maybe just to show you an example of, remember in these dictionaries, when you're handling dictionaries over here, when you try to access when you call the items method on a dictionary, it was returning the key value pairs. So if you just look once again, you'll note that the key value pairs that were being returned by the items method are a tuple. So that is a tuple of the key and the values. Yeah, and you can use more than tuples are not limited to two values. You can have more than two values or more than one value. They're not limited to two values. Yeah. So yeah, we're running out of time. Sets. So a set is an unordered collection of distinct hashable objects. So once again, if some of the wordings here are look kind of complex, you can visit the Python glossary. I'll share the link I'm sharing the link in the chat. Let me just copy it and then share it in the chat section. So the Python glossary. So you can visit this link over here, and I've shared the link in the chat section. So if some of the terms look kind of complex, you can check them out over there. Yeah, for instance, this hashable collection, unordered. Yeah, so a set is an unordered collection of distinct hashable objects. So by unordered, it means it does not take into consideration the order. Distinct means they have to be unique. So hashable means a simple definition of what I will say hashable is, in this case, is items whose value will not change once they have been assigned. So lists in Python are not hashable. So let's first of all let's create a set. Okay. So to create a set, you just choose curly braces. Yeah. Okay. Oops. Probably is a Toyota. So let me change this one here to maybe Ford or something like that. Yeah, so this is the simplest way to create a set. And if you check the type, you'll realize that it's a set. So why is it very important to understand the definition of a set? If you try to do this, you get an error, an hashable type list. That is because a set can only be made up of hashable objects. And as I've mentioned, lists in Python are not hashable, majorly because they're mutable. So yeah, hashable and immutable are usually related. So you'll learn about that with time. So it's very important to understand the definitions of these data structures. So for those of you who have done some mathematics, you probably encountered sets, and sets come in very handy. One is when you need to create a list. One when you need to create a collection of unique objects. So for instance, if you try to let's try to add this Toyota over here again and see what happens. So if you print our set, as you can see, when we were creating our set, we added a duplicate item, that is Toyota. But after our set was created and you come and print it out here, you'll realize that the duplicate Toyota has been removed, and we only have unique items in our set. So sets come in very handy when you need to remove duplicate items, or when you need to create a collection of unique objects. So some of the operations that you can carry out on a set, let's say we have another set over here. That is, I'm not sure about the spelling. Okay, that's the other. Yeah. So some of the operations that you can carry out on a set, we have the union operation. So that involves basically, as the word says, combining two sets, so making a union of two sets. So you can do that by calling a_set, and then we have the union operation. The union, yeah, I believe that's it, and then we set set below. So if you print, is it? I hope it is the union. Yeah. So as you can see now, we have a combination of our A set, this one here, and our B set. So we've done a union of these two sets. So the other operation you can do on sets is so basically this is just the mathematical operations that can be done on sets. So we have intersection. So intersection basically means you want to check the items that are in this set and they're not in the other set. So that can be done by a set using the end, I believe, B set. So let's add and let's copy these two over here. So we've updated our B set to contain two values that are already in the A set. So yeah, so let's see what happens when you try to get an intersection of this. So if you print, okay, let's get an intersection of the B set and the A set. Why am I getting? Okay, this is interesting. Yeah, this happens sometimes. I think you know these things, but you've forgotten all of them. Okay, a underscore set. This should work. Oops. I think I've forgotten something over there, but we'll check it out. I'll just check it out and then we'll see it. So the other operation you can do on a set is it's called difference. So the difference is so intersection. Intersection is you combine two sets and then you find so you do an intersection of a set to another set. So it basically checks the values that are in this set and that are not in the other set. And then for the difference is it gives you they are almost kind of related, but now what differs is which set you are using against the other. So to get the difference, I think you're supposed to use the minus. Okay, let me see. I'll just check it out. So okay, if you print this, differ is not defined. Okay. Yeah. So here we've gotten a difference of the A set and the B set. So basically that means we are finding the values that are in this set and are not in the other set. So as I've been mentioning, you'll get more understanding of where to use these operations as you do more practice with programming, and yeah, you'll find a use case of doing these operations. So there are other operations that can be done on a set, but I'll say these are the most basic ones: union, intersection, and difference. Yeah, and yeah, that's all I have for today about the built-in or the implicit Python data structures. So for those who might have joined late, I mentioned that this session is geared towards beginners. That is beginners, those who are beginners, and yeah, we're talking about the built-in Python data structures. Just building up on what was done in the first session by Anthony. So we've talked about list, dictionary, tuples, and set. So those are the built-in data structures. Of course, there are other data structures that some of you have probably heard of. Those are graphs, stacks, queues. We have linked lists, and yeah, most of them, they are very important, and it's good to understand the built-in data structures for you to work on the other user-defined data structures like linked lists, because they build on these ones over here that are the built-in ones. So maybe just to answer a few questions, not the ones that are in the chat, but some of you might be having already. So some of you have probably heard of arrays, and you're wondering what are the differences between an array and a list. So it's basically this term over here, homogeneous and heterogeneous. You can confirm that. Yeah, you can check that out online. So arrays are designed to carry the same type of data. So for instance, those of you who are coming from other programming who are doing other programming languages, I'm not quite sure which ones have arrays, but I think they're in C++, C. So you'll need to use arrays when you need to have kind of a specific type of data. Let's say you want to store numbers only, or floats only, or strings or characters. But in Python, you'll realize that a list can carry everything. It can carry lists, it can carry dictionaries, it can carry numbers. So it's everything can get into a list. So yeah, that's kind of the difference between lists and arrays. And Python has something on arrays. You can check it out from the documentation. And something else that might be interesting for you to know is, let's say you have an object, because as you've realized, for instance, let me just give an example of this. As you've realized, I have forgotten what is supposed to happen here. for those of you who have noted. So I have forgotten what's supposed to happen here. Or you want to do an operation on an object or on an object or some set of data, and you don't know what you can do on it. So Python provides this method called dir that you can pass in that you can pass in some value, like for instance a_b, and what it does, it gives you the methods that you can call on this object. So for instance, you'll realize this a_b is a set. So what dir does, it tells you the methods that you can call on this object. So these are the dunder methods, this double underscore methods, underscore underscore and underscore underscore. And then we have the methods that you can do. So from what you can see over here is that you can do an add operation on a set. You can clear items in a set. You can copy. You can check the differences. You can do an intersection. You can check whether a set is disjoint or not. You can check whether a set is the subset of another set or not. You can remove an item from a set. You can pop an item from a set. You can remove. You can do a union. So this method comes in very handy when you need to know what you can do on an object. And the other object we had here was a dictionary of scores. So if you pass scores inside here, so you'll see these are some of the methods that you can do on a dictionary object. So you can clear a dictionary, the items in a dictionary, you can copy, you can get, you can call items, keys. Yeah, so this method comes in very handy so that you don't need to cram all these things. You just need to understand, and dir will come to the rescue when you need to remember what you need to do. Yeah, there's something I've not mentioned, that is there's something called len. I don't know, I forgot this. So if you want to find the length of a list, of a set, of a tuple, of a dictionary, I just call the len method, and it gives you the number of items in a sequence or a collection. For instance, our scores dictionary has 2 items. Yeah, and that's all from my side. So Felix, I don't know, you guide me through the questions or how we should go about it. Felix, you can't hear you.
Sorry, my mic was muted. So I was, the first question was, when will we use lists in creating our bots? Somebody's asking how we are going to use lists in creating our bots. Yeah. Did you get that, Eric? Hello, Eric.
Yeah, okay. I was muted also. Will it be okay if I show my bot? Or some section of it?
Yeah, just some section of it.
Yeah, sure. So, okay.
And as you're sharing your screen, somebody also asked if we should create a WhatsApp or Telegram group. So I created a form. You can submit your votes. The results are available publicly. So if the majority have it, we'll go and create ahead the WhatsApp and Telegram groups. Yeah, thank you. So you can just take a look at the charts and you see the form. You can submit your vote.
Okay, let me share my let me share something over here. So desktop or window, let me share a window. Share this. So some of you are asking how will we use our bots? How will not how will you use our bots? How will you be using data structures in our in our boards. And I think this will answer all of them. This will answer that question generally. So as you can see over here, this is a sample of this is a bot. Basically, this is my bot. So we have this this variable here called analyzed tiles. Okay.
Eric, maybe if you could zoom in.
Yeah, let me just zoom in. Settings, bench.
Control plus.
Control plus. Okay.
Yeah, Control plus should do. That's VS Code, right?
So yeah. Sure. Yeah. So we have this variable called analyze tiles, and we have previous move, and we have API calls. So you'll realize in, for instance, over here, game state. As you can see over here, game state is a dictionary, and for you to improve your code or to understand how the template has been provided works, you need to understand the data structures that they have used, so that you know how to manipulate them. So here we need to find our board from so the game state has the value of our board. So for us to find the value of the board, as you can see, it's a dictionary, and so we are accessing the key called board from our game state dictionary. The same, game state has another key called Append tiles, and we need to access it. And yeah, basically that's a dictionary. For instance, accessing the values of a dictionary. Some of these dictionaries have, as I've mentioned, most of the basic Python data structures, apart from sets and tuples, you can nest items inside. So for instance, you can have lists in a dictionary. So we'll see, for instance, you can see over here that let me just explain this section over here. So we have our dictionary called game state. This dictionary called game state has a key called Append tiles. These Append tiles, from what you can see over here, so this is why you need to understand data structures. Append tiles is a list. The value for the key Append tiles is a list or a tuple, but it's obviously a list in this case. And that's why we are trying to access an item using index notation. So that is, we are trying to access the second item in this list. And as you can see, this list, the second item in this list is a dictionary. And that's why you're trying to access the value by using a key. And the same applies throughout. You'll need to understand how to access the values from what you're getting. And I think it has been mentioned, or if it has not been mentioned, we'll be using Microsoft services, Microsoft Cognitive Services. So the response that you'll be getting from the Microsoft API is what I will call a complex data structure, or a merge of very many data structures. So you'll need to know how to manipulate it so as to access what you want, a specific value that you want. So you'll get a response that is a mixture of a lot of dictionaries, lists, and yeah, just values, specific values, strings, or numbers, and you need to know how to access those values. So yeah, that's how you need to use them. As you can see over here, we are trying to access something that is deeply nested inside a response from the Microsoft API. So you're accessing a dictionary, a list, a dictionary, a list, a dictionary, a list, a dictionary. Yeah, so you need to understand that as much as possible. Okay. The next question, please.
I think most of the questions were answered in the chats. Let me just scroll through. Somebody was asking, the dot is for the methods when you use Python method. Okay, I think, okay. I noticed all commands you put a dot.
Sorry?
Just a minute, I'm trying to understand it.
Okay.
Oh, someone is asking, I noticed all commands you put a dot, for example, list.append, scores.append. Is asking, is it a must? But then he was answered on the charts. The dot is for methods. We use Python method. Okay, when we use Python methods, we use dot and brackets at the end. Yeah, so his question was answered. He was asking why we use those dots.
Oh, oh, I see.
Yeah.
I think if yeah, I think I've gotten what you're saying. Someone is asking why we're using these dots over here.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Yeah, most of this, I think, as you've said, most of these methods provided for a certain data structures, you'll be calling dots on them. So, for instance, if you can just print this out again, you'll see that it gives us some of these methods. So most of these are usually methods. Actually, all of these are methods, and they are accessed using a dot. So all of these, including these data methods over here, are accessed by, or you can use them by using the dot. Of course, there are others that you don't need to use a dot. For instance, if you need to get the length of a list, you can just do len and list underscore data, and it will give you the length of the list. But the others that you need to, the methods you need to use a dot. For instance, this is the data method for length, and it's the one that you can see over here. So you need to use, it's this one here. So you'll need to use a dot. Yeah, I think that has been answered pretty much well.
Okay, then somebody's asking if you could share the notes. So maybe if you can drop a link to your notes on the charts.
Sorry?
Somebody's asking if you could share your notes.
My notes?
Yeah, yeah. The notes, the slides that
The Jupyter
what you used to
notebook?
teach. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I think the Jupyter notebook will be shared after the session in the files, right?
Yeah, okay. Then
Yeah.
I think the last question is, okay, do I identify a data structure from the type of brackets used?
Uh-huh. Interesting. Do I identify a data structure from the type of brackets used? Well, I think the brackets have been used. Yeah, I can say yes, because they need to be distinguished. Because you can't imagine that you'll be creating lists using square brackets and also tuples using square brackets. So basically, the type of brackets used are basically to help us distinguish. But also, I'll also say no to that question, because if you check over here, you'll realize that while creating dictionaries, we were using curly braces. And also, we were using curly braces when creating sets. So if you cram that, when I see curly braces, it's a set, it could be a dictionary. Or when you cram that, when I see curly braces, it's a dictionary, it could be a set. So basically, you need to understand. You need to understand what one. You need to understand by as you saw up here. You can just call the type method on an object, and it will tell you what type it is. So, for instance, if you type L, it will tell you that it's a list. Yeah. So type should tell you what a data structure is. That is, if you've not seen it being created, the type method can tell you what it is. Or calling dir on an object can tell you what it is, because it's only dictionaries in Python that have these methods: keys, items, and values. Yeah.
Okay. Then I think those are all the questions we had. Maybe final words from you.
Final. Okay. Yeah. Maybe just to introduce myself again. My name is Eric Ouma. I'm a Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador. I'm a fourth-year student at Kenyatta University. Yeah, I'm programming. Some of you are new. Probably some of you are well versed with programming. So the best way to master this content is basically practice, practice, practice. So the more you practice, the more you'll be able to master this content. Personally, I'm not a beginner, of course. I'm into web and deep learning, so I do a lot of web and deep learning stuff. And yeah, it's doing those and doing a lot of practice that has given me much knowledge and experience with this. And as I mentioned, you don't need to cram this information because it's available from the documentation. So you don't need to cram. You don't need to, like, someone can wake you up in the middle of the night and you tell them everything. All this information is available in the Python's documentation. All you need to do is understand. That's what I will emphasize. You need to understand, where do I use a dictionary? Where do I use a list? Where do I use a tuple? Where do I use this? So understand how to use these data structures, and any other information that you need is available in the documentation. And of course, practice, 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 practice. That's
Okay,
all from me, Alex.
Thank you so much, Eric. So, just one more thing as we finalize. So, I shared a number. Okay, I can see we had 15 responses from the chats. Those are for people who want us to create a WhatsApp group. So maybe, Eric, if you can allow me to share my screen.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay, just a minute. Okay, so we have, okay, we might be sharing my screen. What happened?
Not yet. We can't.
Okay, so are you seeing my screen?
Yeah, you can see your screen.
Okay, just a minute. Okay, so we have 15 responses. So majority of saying we create a Telegram group. So I'm going to create a Telegram group. Then I'm going to send you guys out an email. And the email is also going to come with instructions on how to register for the tournament. So what I realized is most of you, yes, you have registered to participate in the bootcamp, but you haven't registered to participate in the tournament. So if you take a look at the link on the charts, I am sharing a link. So for you to participate in the tournament, you have to register for the event on the aigaming.com, right? Now, during the last week, we'll be providing Microsoft Azure activation codes, and we're going to provide those codes to the participants who have registered for the tournament on the aigaming.com platform. So that's all, guys, and thanks for joining. Let's meet next week on, let's meet this week on Friday. Thank you. Unless somebody has a question, if you have a question, maybe you can share with us.
I've shared my email in the chat section. In case someone wants to reach out, they can reach out to me. My phone number,
Okay, guys.
I'll be added to funny WhatsApp groups.
Okay, guys, so you'll find the recording for this session on the files. So okay, let me just show you once more. For those who are new, I saw somebody was saying it's difficult to navigate Microsoft Teams. Yeah, at times it is. It's your first time. So once you have registered, you'll get an email telling you that you have been added to a Microsoft team. So just click on that link and remember to sign in. So for you to join the Microsoft team, you have to sign in and using the email address you used to register. So when you're signing in, make sure that, oh, am I really sharing my screen? Sorry, guys. I forgot I was supposed to share my screen. Just a minute. Just a minute, I share my screen. Okay, I hope you can see my screen, right?
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Okay, so when you register, you'll get an email letting you know that you have been added to a Microsoft team. So for you to join, you have to click on the link, and then you'll have to sign in using the email address you used to register for the AI Gaming East Africa Bootcamp. And that email must be connected to a Microsoft account. So if it's your first time, then you'll have to sign up, register for a Microsoft account, and then get back to that email and register. So once you log in, you land on such a page. You'll see these are the different channels. You have the general and main bootcamp, or general and bootcamp. So when you get on the bootcamp, this is where we have our current meeting. So the meeting that is currently going on, you can see there's a kind of an icon telling that there's a meeting going on, and this is the meeting you're having right now. Yeah. So next time, even if you don't have the link, just log in on Friday, 17 hours in the evening. Just log in, get to the bootcamp channel, and then you'll find, just scroll up and you'll find all the meetings that you'll be having for the bootcamp. All of them have been scheduled, right? Then you can't access the recordings. Just get back to the general channel, and then on top you'll see the files tab. So this is where we are going to upload the recording. So if you go to this folder, you are going to access the recordings. Yeah, so it's that simple navigating Microsoft Teams. Thank you, guys. If there is no question, we'll call it a day, and we can meet on Friday.
I have shared the notebook on the chat.
Okay, guys, thanks for joining, and let's meet on Friday. Thank you. Bye.